Termites, it's night 29. How exciting is that? What are we drinking? A little Thor as well, Pinot Noir. It's really the only red wine I can drink. The rest of them have too many tannins, and I tend to have a terrible allergic headache due to the tannins, which has disappointed Lewis greatly because he loves wine, and he likes to taste wine, and then I go, I only can drink the $12 bottle, Lou. I'm not interested in your fancy wines. That you find someone else to do that with. Well, we're getting to the end. I have procured Liberace's book and George Jones's. I think George's, well, they're both, I didn't read them, but I've glanced at them. Both pretty good. You guys can vote. I do read all the comments. I try to answer some of them too, but then I feel like if I go on there and there's like 100, I feel like if I don't answer everybody, some people feel left out, and then, I don't know. Sometimes I do. But I like reading them. So keep sending them. On the YouTube. Okay, Conway's about to die. His wife is named Dee. Loretta's telling him, don't die. Then Dee talked to Conway and told him he'd been going through bigger battles than this. Of course, she really didn't know what battle he was facing. Oh, that he'd been through bigger battles than this. Of course, she didn't know what battle he was facing. Meanwhile, I was praying that Conway would live, even though I knew it'd be different. Death is the final rest. That's what I don't like. I don't even like R.I.P. I don't want to rest in peace. I want to do stuff in peace. Like, active in peace. Hit the road in peace. Get gone. Get gone. Just tell me to get gone. But don't R.I.P. It just sounds like, that makes it sound like you're just sleeping forever. Death is the final rest, but it's an ugly rest to behold. I'd always heard from the time I was a little girl in the mountains that a person's spirit leaves the body, a person ain't truly dead. I was hysterical and determined that Conway's spirit not get out of his body. If I could keep it there, if I could get it back in there, Conway would come back to life. I honestly believed that. When I leaned over, his body was so warm, I became convinced that his spirit was still there. I told his spirit to stay inside him. When I feared it had gone, I looked up and told him to come back down and get inside. Oh, God, don't let him be dead, I yelled. Oh, God, bring this here body back to life. Come on down, Conway, and get back in your body. He's already gone to heaven, the chaplain told me. I remember the Bible story of Jesus raising people from the dead. I remember the scripture that said, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's going to heal him, I kept yelling, completely hysterical. Then finally they gave me a shot. Jesus, everybody's down in the Springfield, Missouri hospital. Everybody. Conway's down, Dew's down. Now they're shooting her up with sedatives. The sedative had started to work by the time I got back to Dew's room, but I still had to turn my head to the wall so he wouldn't see me cry. Death seemed to be a-stalking us. A week after Conway passed, my oldest brother, Junior, 59, caught a cold and went to the hospital in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Doctors later decided he had pneumonia. He was put on a respirator and died a week later. Junior had never been in a hospital, so it became his first and last time. I flew out to his funeral and returned to Dew as soon as the service was over. I lost another brother in 1996, 3 weeks before Dew died. My brother, Jay Lee, who traveled so many times with me during his career, was diagnosed with cancer of the pancreas. He was dead 3 months after the cancer was discovered. Conway's death left me numb. The world just moved around me, and I was mostly unaware of anything going on, with one exception. My husband's health was draining out of him. Oh, Lord. Chapter 25. How do you get ready for death? Whew. Dew told Betty Sue, my oldest daughter, he made his peace with God when he was in the hospital in Springfield. I can't tell you how much how this pleases me. But he told Betty Sue, even though he was ready to meet the Lord, he couldn't leave this here earth for at least a year. He told her he thought he needed to get me ready. How are you going to get somebody ready for death? How do you prepare for some of the things that lead to death? Not long after Dew was released, well, at least he got out of the hospital, we moved back to Hurricane Mills. Dew's health was on a downhill patch, but he was determined we could have as close to life as normal as possible. We started taking some trips together, just the two of us in the mid-'80s. Dew bought a fifth-wheeler and insisted we do it. When we first started taking him, he was still well But even when his health got worse, he wanted us to hit the road from time to time. We traveled all over the Northwest with him driving and me backseat driving. I drove some, and he started to feel proud of me for able to handle a big vehicle, and even admitted it. His proudest moment was seeing me able to hook up the trailer to the truck. We had some great times on those trips, even though he was in a lot of pain. We camped, and Dude would sit on the riverbank and watch me fish. He'd laugh and joke. He was nothing like he'd been during them bad old day trips in the early years of our marriage. It's a shame that dying can be the thing that brings out the best in a person. I think Dew insisted on those trips to start saying a long goodbye to help me prepare for life without him. This is getting real sad, Termites. It's real, but we're going to come out on the other side of it, I believe that. But while the trips were wonderful, they didn't prepare me for the rest of the battle or the way it ended. I had family and close friends, but the ones I came to lean on the most were our two old friends in Arizona, Rosie and Chuck Hamilton. In June of 1995, Chuck retired from the trucking business he owned, and when they learned how bad things was with Dew, they got in their motorhome and headed to Hurricane Mills. By the time they got here, Dew was in terrible shape from the diabetes. I had a bed set up in the living room, and I slept on the couch right next to him. One of his legs got to hurting so bad that he would have done anything to stop it, anything except take drugs, that is. Why? Because that's dope. That's what we've learned. Doctor said there wasn't much to do they could do with the pain without his consent. Dude could have taken Demerol or some strong pain medication, but he's dead set against it. I finally signed papers authorizing the doctor to give him the badly needed pain medication. He didn't know I did it, and he didn't even know he was on the medicine. It made him high, and he had hallucinations. During one hallucination, Dew ordered me to get out of the way before he ran over me. He was hollering from the bed, thinking he was driving a bulldozer. Another time, when he was home, he tried to call the law and claimed I'd stolen all of his clothes and that he was being held hostage. Seeing that made me almost sadder than seeing him in pain. Pain medication didn't help all that much anyway. Every step he took was like walking on hot coals. Finally, he told the doctors that if they didn't cut his leg off, he was going to shoot it off himself. He made the decision on his own. He never talked about it with me or any of my children. My husband's leg was cut off below the knee. It meant the world having Rosie and Chuck here. It was almost impossible for me to help Doolittle by myself once that leg came off. One time I was trying to wheel him outside for some fresh air. The wheelchair chipped back on a rock step, and he slipped out. Chuck came running out to help me get Dew off the ground. I have to admit it that we laughed at what the tabloids would have printed if they'd have seen that. Loretta dumps husband would have been the headline, and that would have been a long time coming. After he lost the first leg, Dew took my hand and apologized for the years he spent drinking. Like I said at the first of this book, when he said he'd had ended up in the gutter without me, I told him it was crazy to say it. It wasn't no time to be having guilty feelings, and Loretta Lynn would have never ended up in no gutter. When he had only one leg, he nonetheless insisted that me and him go for drives. His eyesight and physical skills had been limited by the diabetes and the mixtures of medication he was taking, although none, as I've said, included painkillers at this point. I didn't want to ride with him because his physical limitations. He was the worst driver than he realized. He'd drive on our ranch, which has many asphalt roads and hills. Me and him would travel 7 miles into Waverly, Tennessee, and cross the interstate on the other winding and hilly roads, but he couldn't see too good by then. There were times when he drove right to the edge of a cliff. I grabbed the steering wheel in the nick of time and saved us from the accident. Ernest Ray would take Dew for Jeep rides, and Dew would insist on wearing cowboy boots. At that time, he still had one leg. He'd try to get a boot on that stump that was the remainder of his other leg, but the boot wouldn't go on, and Dew would get aggravated and throw the boot. Most important thing is he wanted to go ride for a ride, not lay in the bed feeling sorry for himself. Now they wrote himself. Let's go back to his self. I finally got used to it. And he wanted to dress the way he always had. Awful. Ernest thinks the pain medication prevented Dew from realizing half his leg was gone. He didn't realize he had no foot. Maybe so. Doctor said, well, how about somebody ask him, hey, Dad, do you think you have a foot? Yay or nay? Do you have a foot, say, or not? I think he tried to wear that boot because he forgot he had a missing leg. It didn't feel like it was missing. I think Dew would have tried to wear boots whether he realized he had on one leg or not. Dew would have tried to wear gloves if he had no hands. He fought to be normal and regained his life right up to the second he lost it. But Dude's reckless driving and the rides with Ernest and all the rest was that his life stopped when diabetes took his second leg. Oh, no. Oh, Lord. After that, he couldn't even turn over alone. Oh, shit. Dude talked to Chuck and Rosie and asked them to consider staying on as a sort of companion and assistant, mainly as friends. Rosie said they thought it over hard because, as Chuck told Dude, sometimes mixing friends and work don't make for a good situation. But Dude convinced them to stay, and they are with me to this day. Wow. Chuck keeps the yard work up, helps me do a lot of different things. Rosie works part-time in my new clothing shop and is a full-time friend. During the last years of Dude's life, we made a lot of changes. I worked hard and didn't record, but I hardly worked and didn't record, but I did take a few dates because even with insurance, I was running out of money. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. My manager arranged for me to work about 5 days a month, just enough to cover household overhead. I had to take my band of 27 years off salary and pay them only for a handful of shows they worked. Aw, that hurt me something awful because I knew they counted on the jobs, but my recording and songwriting royalties were not enough to keep the family going. The older country artists, such as myself, were not getting radio airplay during the 90s in the country music industry. Me, Merle Haggard, Tammy Wynette, Johnny Cash, Charlie Pride, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and others were almost never heard on American radio as the 90s rolled on. I'd fly to do a show and fly back the same night so I could sit up with Dew all night. But by then he was so sick he often didn't know I was gone. I told you I sleep sitting up, but slept is a poor choice of words. There was many a night where I didn't sleep a lick, and neither did Dew. I slept when he slept, which wasn't much. More and more he talked less and less. His pain was so intense that probably all he could think about, and he wasn't about to talk about the pain. One night he looked up at me and said, "Loretta, I can't hear the music anymore." Aw. I can't believe I'm upset about this man. Chapter 26, Death Carries Forgiveness. Well, now you're going to act like he was just a wonderful person, and I mean, I'm sure he had wonderful traits, but dear Lord, I'm getting all choked up about it. I don't even know the guy. Dude had a fighting spirit. He just couldn't take no for an answer. That's how it was when he knocked on the doors of disc jockeys back in the 60s to get him to play Honky Tonk Girl. That's how it was when he knocked unannounced on the door of the big shots at the Grand Ole Opry. And that's how it was when death knocked on Dude's doors. He refused to die for a long time, even with heart trouble, diabetes, losing one leg and then another. There wasn't any getting around it. He was dying, and we both knew it. I tried so hard to stay strong for him that it affected me physically. One night, about 3 weeks before he died, he woke up yelling, "Loretta, get the nurse." I jumped up, and I thought something awful was happening. "Are you feeling worse?" I was scared out of my mind. "That nurse ain't for me. It's for you. Look at yourself." Ha ha. I broke out all over my body, big old welts. My arms, face, and legs still break out. Me, who never had a pimple, fist fights, breakups all the time to this day. Your body will only take so much. That's right. Dude didn't have much of an appetite during his last days of life. A man who demanded 3 hefty meat and vegetables a day didn't even crave a cracker. He was also having a problem with dehydration, getting fluids in him, so I started serving watermelon. "Baby," I said on the day he died, "I'm going to eat a piece of watermelon. Each time I do, I want you to eat a piece." We finished watermelon. He looked up at me and smiled. It's the last time I'd see a smile on his lips. I'd just gone out to cry when he began to choke. His lungs was filling up with fluid. One of the nurses went to get Rosie. "Go find Loretta," the nurse said to Rosie. "Tell her Dew is dying." That's exactly what Rosie did. I ran to Dew's bedside. His skin had changed color. I could hear him choking. He shook with every cough. I screamed for somebody to do something. Nobody did much of anything. Well, who's going to do it? I mean, Chuck and Rosie aren't nurses and doctors. Maybe there was nothing they could do, but if he'd have been in the hospital, they could have put something down his throat into his lungs and drained the fluid, maybe. But he wasn't in no hospital. Right. And how long does he want to live like this? He was in God's hand, and God was tightening his grip. Then Dew's head towards me, and the remainder of his near half body lay still. His eyes locked squarely with mine. I prayed and kept on praying. Dew kept watching me. His lips didn't move, but his eyes smiled. They gave a shine directly on me, and they spoke silently. They said everything was going to be all right. Doolittle Lynn was soon to be at peace. There wasn't a sound in the room, but I could believe I could hear a choir of angels. Finally, I knew I just had to tell him it was going to be all right. Just go around the corner, honey, and wait for me. I'll catch up. Dews was the prettiest blue eyes I'd ever seen since I was 13 years old. They turned immediately gray with his one last breath on August 6, 1996. I got a little crazy when they said he was gone. Finally, I went to my bedroom for a while. Nurses gave me a shot to help me. When I returned, Dew's body was not there. Ernest Ray had taken him to the funeral home for embalming without my consent. God damn it, these boys just won't stop. All these children run around this ranch just doing whatever. Later, I found out Ernest had gone to our family graveyard with the backhoe, and dug Dew's grave 3 days earlier. I pitched a fit because Ernest had taken his daddy away while I was in the bedroom. I know that Ernest did it intentionally because he knew I would have not agreed to it. I slept that night on the couch where I'd been sleeping next to Dew during his long illness. Rosie and my granddaughter Taylor stayed with me. At daylight, I called the funeral home and told them to bring Dew home. I wanted to sit up with the body like my people in Kentucky had done for so many years. Oh, Lord. I thought my kids would join me, but they never did. It was the longest night of my life. Whew, shoo, buddy, as Ron would say. Shoo, buddy. His body lay inside a coffin where his bed had been before passing. It lay there all day and night. I was alone with Dew during the last night he spent in his coffin in our house. I sat by him and I talked to him. He didn't wear no suit or necktie, but I knew he'd want to be buried in what he wore most every day of his life, so I picked out one of his favorite shirts. Our house, the one he was building with when he got sick, had a glass roof. The moon leaked into the dark room. It was the only light on him, except for a natural glow that I'll swear he's somewhere put there even in death. For one last time, I sat up all night with Doolittle. Never of us would we dreamed it'd end this way, not this soon. Well, I don't know. There was just so much I wanted to say before we'd be put beneath the ground. I'm sure his spirit heard me. I kissed his lips about every half hour, and I think he kissed me back. Some people told one of my friends that the notion of a dead man kissing me back. I don't care what nobody says. I'm going to continue to believe that he kissed me back and heard every word I said. It was pitch black outside our home, 7 miles from the nearest town. It was hot, and the only sound of that was summertime wildlife. Doolittle Lynn wasn't no saint. Neither am I. That's what a lot of people have to say at the end. I ain't no saint, neither are you. He wouldn't want to make him to be out one now. But nothing bad he ever did came to mind that night. That night, if anybody brought up any of that stuff, said a bad word about Dude, I'd have whipped him. Surprised it wasn't whipped. I would have, right there beside his body. Dude would have probably gotten a kick out of it. Death carries grief, but it also carries forgiveness. People had seen me and Dew argue and throw punches. String beans, throw string beans. They'd seen him drunk, so had I. I've been embarrassed many a time with the way he behaved in front of folks who right marry me in the room, but none of that mattered. Dew, who wasn't no angel, looked like one that night. Oh, termites. Maybe pick something happier next time. So sad. So sad. We're almost done. I'd say maybe 1, 2, 4, probably 4 more nights till we move on. I'm going to mark that right there. All right, termites, what are we doing? Well, we still have football. That's good. You can bet on DraftKings. Do you have DraftKings in your state? You can make bets. MGM has betting now online. Super Bowl. It's going to be fun, right? That's it. As soon as I get my parents done vaccinated, I'm going to drive on down to Florida and stalk their asses. That's what I'm going to do. But that might be a little bit. So in the meantime, we got to stay safe, cozy. Get yourself a little nightcap, or not. After reading this book, I think maybe not. Jesus Christ. I don't think I drink as much as Doolittle Lynn, though. Matter of fact, I'm real sure I don't. And I don't do dope. Never have. Ain't my thing. I'm a drinker, not a drugger. But to each his own, as the Lord would say. I feel like every time hillbillies say something, they go, as the Lord would say. And I think, did he say that? Did he say the dope's bad? Maybe. I don't know. I'm Catholic. We're not keen to be reading the Bible. Not real keen on that. All right, termites, pull up your sheets. Get cozy. Stay warm. That fire just turns off. It's gas. I really wanted a real fireplace, but it seems like a pain in the ass, considering I'm not home that much. Well, now I am, now that I've been thrown into semi-retirement. Now I understand when I call my mom and I'll go, what'd you do today? She'll go, well, I took a shower. I'm like, Mom, that doesn't count. That's not it. But it counts now. I get it. Now that's an activity. Well, I took a shower, so I did that. All right, termites. Pull up your sheets. You're good termites. You're nice to each other, too. I've noticed that online. Every once in a while, a termite will get a little out of line, and all you other termites, pew, pew. You ready? You cozy? Night-night, termites.